Hello everyone, good evening. My name is Krishna Opfer Varela. Welcome to one more Krishna International Magazine show. Tonight, our show will be amazing. We'll talk about the power of education. And we have here as my guest, an educational activist, Neusa Araújo.
Hello.
Hello, Neusa.
How are you, dear?
I'm good, my dear. Thank you for being on my show.
Thank you for having me. It's such a delight to be here.
It's a pleasure, especially with this name, the power of education.
The topic? Yeah, it's a good one.
When you heard about this topic, what is the view that you have about education?
Well, power of education can have a lot of meanings and different meanings to different people. But I think it would be ideal to define what education is first and then what power of education really translates to. So as we know, education is a process where we receive, we give information, knowledge, skills, and attitude to people. And that is supposed to make us educated as a human being, as a person in a society, in our family. Now, education is also about life, as we were talking the other day. When we go through life, our personal path educates us. So that's the experiential learning. Now, when we talk about power, power is the capacity or the ability to make change. So with knowledge and skills, we have the power to transform. And so power of education is being a human being, and when I say that, I mean it, a human being that is able to live peacefully, righteously, for him or herself, as well for the family and the community. And so when we have the power of education happening, we're talking about some deep stuff, sensitive and very important thing in nowadays. So that's what power of education means to me. It means me having the capacity to use the knowledge that I'm given in school, academically, but also at home in my society, be able to use that to be happy, to share happiness, and to teach.
Yeah, great. For me, I can tell, like you said, we talked the other day, it's really a life experience.
Exactly.
So education is everything, guys. Is at home, is what you learn at home with your family, is your neighbor, is your school, is your traveling, it's everything.
Right, and so we have, and I'm glad you're bringing that up, because yesterday when I was thinking about education and the ways that I learn best, it's really been through visual learning, traveling, which gives you a lot of that, because a lot of the things that we are taught in school, in books, is just theory and history. But when you actually cross cultures, traveling, learning another language, you're really getting that deep education of other people, other race, other countries, other economic status. And it's not just what you see on TV. Like if you see Africa on TV, you think you're being educated by media, but there's so much more that we don't see. So you actually have to go there.
To see, it's a totally different education about media and about the experience, the practice one.
Exactly, experiential learning.
But you, Neusa, I know that you are an artist. So before getting through this, what do you feel, what you can tell to this viewer that is watching us right now, that you contribute from education in this society?
That's a very good question. In many forms, I think that I contribute.
What you did on the past,
right?
Or what you did on the past that you feel that you contribute.
Yeah. As an education activist, and we all are, you are a little kid that is 6 or 7, can be also an educator. And so as an activist that wants to promote education and talk about it and change the system, the reforms of education, I contribute. I contribute by just being here today. I contribute as a trainer, as an educator, as a counselor. when we work with people, my background is biopsychology, and so social sciences and being human is what I teach. Being emotionally smart, being able to do more than what your parents want you to do, to do what you want to do, to dream what you want to dream. So my education is really making people to transcend and find themselves, find the self, and most of the time I use art to do that, or training. And so I have done training for teachers, like teacher training, adults that are in community development. I've done HIV/AIDS training.
Where?
And education in United States, in Cape Verdean, Brazilian, and Portuguese community. That's actually how I started when I went my college degree. But I've also lived United States. I've done it internationally in Botswana through the Peace Corps. I've also done it back home in a very community development aspect of education. And right now I work for WIDICO, although that's not the reason why I'm here today, so we won't talk about my job. But I work in a school-based program, and our vision, our goal is to diminish violence in our community. So educating the youth about and children about violence, it starts at home if we allow it. It goes out in the community and the schools. So how do we stop bullying? So education in a way that is more of a social skills building to empower youth to see the power in education, which can be a very complex thing because it takes a lot of behavior change and attitude change. And so that's what I do.
And if you have opportunity to choose any of the areas of education, I know that is hard, but there is a specific one that you would pick to work with?
They're different, you mean like professional career?
Professional career.
I would say education in general, because once you're in education and you really understand what it takes to really contribute and gain that yourself as you're doing in the process, you're everywhere. Education, you could be in environmental sector, environmental education, you could be in women and girls education, you could be in the education administration, how do we change systems, management, how do we change the mind of our staff to actually have a better ambiance for education. So to me, it's an integrated process. I can never be a teacher, although I feel I teach, but I can never be a teacher in a classroom with kids. It's something that has been defined to me that I can't do that. And that's just basically observing authentic teachers in the classroom and me knowing that, oh my gosh, I don't think I can really do that. Yes. So I use other means. I really love art in all discipline. And painting and dancing is one of my favorite because I could be more expressive with it, not only to express myself and heal through that process, but also to use what comes out of me as an education tool. And so to answer your question, I know I went around, if there was what type of education that I would do, I would think I see myself covering a lot of arenas. And what is the form that I would use? Definitely the performing arts and the fine arts and stuff that I do myself and things that my friends and great artists do, and use that as a tool to make education more powerful, because the more visual and auditory it is, the more we're able to learn. And so, Krishna, I want us to shift a little bit, because a lot of times when we think about education, we're more seeing the academics, the theoretical people, part, the classroom.
The classroom.
Yeah. And as an education activist, I support that. Obviously, that's part of the whole package, the whole enchilada. But the education out on the streets, right?
Yes.
Education that how do we use the knowledge that we get to act with it, to make it act, to make us behave when it's needed in a certain situation? That's actually when intelligence comes about.
Yeah, to use it on your daily life.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so that education is not really happening because our communities are not so much united. And so we have a lot of things, great things happen in our community, but it takes a village. It takes a community to really see education as the way, and to educate youth about their background, their culture, their self-identity, you know, stuff that we don't get in school. To teach them about their culture, their history, stuff that they may read on the books. But okay, what does that mean in my real life? What am I going to do with this?
How I can use this theory on my practice life.
Exactly. In practicality, it needs to be reinforced. And that's where parents really play their roles. A lot of times we don't do processing at home in our own culture, and I don't want to generalize, but I know in my own Cape Verdean and African culture, when kids go home, we rarely process what they're learning in school. So this happened in your classroom. What does that mean in real life? How will you utilize this? And feedback giving. We're not very great at giving feedback. And
even
giving
the parents right now don't have too much time. They think, they work more than give the kids attention. But one good question that I would love to ask you, which part of education that you feel that they need to work more on that? The society, the culture.
To tell you the truth, Krishna, and I take responsibility for saying this because of my own journey to be where I'm at, and it took a while. I want to say that there's need to be sort of like a revamp. We need to revamp the whole education gig, the whole system, how we relate, how we communicate, how we report, how we change in the education itself, the school. We also need to work with parents. Parents need a lot of training, especially young parents, how to be a parent. And unfortunately, our communities don't have that much resource to apply to community needs like that. So if our parents have to work 12, 14 hours a day, there's something lacking at home. Not only the love and the affection that builds us to be emotionally educated, that lacks a lot, but also the time to process at home. Because if you're home for 4 hours and you're cooking and you're cleaning and then you're watching TV, there isn't that much time where you're sitting down to have a dialogue with your kid. And that's essential. If we can't dialogue at home, it means that when we're being confronted out in the community, we're not dialoguing.
I know.
So we're seeing a lot of violence, we're seeing a lot of aggressiveness. Look at what's happening in Gaza, and that's a whole a world issue, but you know, but it's stuff to think about. It starts at a very young age, and there's a development phase that we go through that is very critical, and I really want to send this message to the parents. Sometimes we disregard where that phase is. And that development phase is when kids are between 8 to 13, so their pre-adolescent puberty phase, where a lot of processing, a lot of education, a lot of information, a lot of guidance has to happen between parent, teachers, grandparents, and friends to make that happen. If we miss that phase, I'm not saying that every kid will go through some difficulties and turbulences, but most of the kids miss a lot. And by the time they figure out, wait a minute, I'm not emotionally intelligent to deal with this. Why? It wasn't because it was not processed at home. So parents need training to do that, and I acknowledge that. A lot of parents don't know how to be a parent. A lot of parents are still trying to find themselves. But we need to do more of that. And so education can happen one-on-one. Yesterday, I met a friend of mine, Paula. She's much older than me, and very African-rooted person. And we sat on her porch on Washington Street and we chatted for like an hour. And that 1 hour, none of my professors could have given it to me in 1 hour.
Wow.
And that's powerful. So how do we find these traditional leaders, these educators that live in our community? We got to step out of our homes. We got to put our children in contact with them. We got to give it to them.
Yes.
Come out of that box, of that circle that they're going to school, they're coming home, they're seeing their aunts. No,
They've been educated because they go to the school. It's not only that.
It's not only
the
that.
parents needs to be more attention. All you need is to watch out when to become a parent.
That too, and that's a whole other topic. but the essential thing is to be aware that we never stop learning.
Yeah, to be aware that the education is around us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My grandmother is in her 80s.
Yeah.
She sings, and I'm only finding now that singing is her therapy.
Yes.
And that's educational for me, coming from her at 80.
At 80.
So she sits down and she sings. She doesn't remember a lot of things because of her own health issues, but art, music helps her remember lyrics of when she was 6.
Okay. Talking about music and painting. All these arts.
Yeah, thanks for keeping me on check here.
let's talk about this, because I know that this all is education. So Neusa, what is inspired? What do you see that your paintings educate someone?
All right.
What is correlation that you see with education and these beautiful drawings?
We'll start with that one. Just an example of how art is an instrumental tool to use in education. When you see that art, anyone can have different interpretation of what it is. But what I wanted to express here is the power of womanhood.
Wow, beautiful.
And that's a Yoruba dancer. Is it okay if I get up?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a Yoruba dancer here. We have the face, we have the chakras, right? And it's a dancer that is celebrating birth. So this is a woman that is about to give birth and a woman who's about to get married. So this is like a traditional African beautiful dress that the women wear when they have celebration. So in Yoruba tribe, the woman is very well respected and valued. And so when they mature, when they get through that tribal, spiritual preparation, they then dance. Not any woman can dance for when the marriage and birth is happening in the community. And so I use that to educate people about Africa, about Yoruba tribe, and what dances and music in Africa means.
And inspire, wow.
This one in particularly I finished last night, and it's pretty